Good evening. Here am I, send me. Who in this audience has heard that before? All right, that's in response. Isaiah said that in response to when God said, "Whom shall I send, and who will go for us?" And Isaiah said, "Here am I, send me." Answering basically a basic evangelistic cry for God. This evening, as Ed mentioned, we're going to discuss a few things about evangelism and missions, but also wanted us to consider some other Christian responsibilities or Christian attitudes, conduct. Matthew chapter 7, verse 12, Philippians 1, verse 27, our relationships. Matthew chapter 7 talks about this in great depth. Ephesians chapter 4, verses 2 and 3, active local church involvement, which many of us in attendance tonight definitely practice that. Regular Bible study, Proverbs 3, verses 1 and 2, Acts 17 and 1. Prayer, 1 Thessalonians 5 and 17. How about doing the will of the Father? Jesus mentioned that many times in the New Testament. Matthew 7:21 and Matthew 12:50. Another thing, and this is not an exhaustive list by any means, but evangelism and missions. We know about the Great Commission, Matthew 28:19 and 20. Acts 13 and 47, and of course there are many more, but 2 Timothy chapter 4 and verse 5. Endure hardship, do the work of an evangelist, fulfill your ministry. Evangelism or missions is not just a recommendation, but a Christian duty. In 2 Peter chapter 3 and verse 9, the Lord says this: "The Lord is not slow about his promise, as some count slowness, but is patient toward you, not wishing for any to perish, but all to come to repentance." Many of us are probably familiar with the steps toward conversion: to hear, believe, repent, confess, and be baptized. The first one that any of us in our conversion process had to go through was here. Romans chapter 10 and verse 17. So faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. Well, how can we hear? That's kind of a simple, basic, elementary question. But how do we hear unless someone speaks to them? How does a child learn in school without someone teaching them? Now, there are many ways to achieve this Christian responsibility. Personally, we can have one-on-one evangelism. Many of us in this room may have benefited, have been converted, or converted someone else through that form of evangelism. But if you're like me, that's a difficult thing, don't you think? It's hard unless you have that proper relationship to go to someone and have that Bible study. In the right setting, it's possible. But for some of us, many of us, it's a difficult thing to do, and it kind of goes against some of our personality, right? Some ways we achieve this, especially in a collective church universal way, is through media. Maybe there are many congregations that come together to support a mission effort in certain countries. India is one that you see many of those things. Maybe it's a radio broadcast, radio tower. I know several years ago, and if I say we or I, it's because I was a member here for several years and still feel a part of this congregation. But I remember we had some business meetings where we talked about supporting a tower over in the Middle East area. And so things like that. That's another way. We can't always be the ones to go. We're not always going to be that person that's able to, with our own maybe abilities or skills or financial ability, to go and be a missionary. But there are other ways we can do that. But the vast majority of us, myself included, typically, as when we think about our own mission work, it's my own time, maybe a certain skill set. There's a group here that goes to Mexico, and their mission is repairing and building houses, right? That's a skill that the men and women have, that they're able to do another mission there. But typically it's time, our skills and ability, or financial support. Okay? We as a nation really, as citizens, are probably, not even probably, one of the richest nations in the world, and if not the history of the world. And I'm guilty of this. My parents are guilty of this. We even have storage bins, right? We have to build sheds to store things, where other countries, I mean, they'd be lucky to have half the things we have, a quarter of the things we have. So when we consider the riches we have and the blessings that we have in this nation, we are truly a blessed nation. Now, the reason I'm here, and some of you don't know me, like, who's this guy? I want to share with you, if you don't know, a unique opportunity that Pinellas Park, this congregation has with the relationship with the Weeki Wachee Christian Camp, which is overseen by Christian Activities. If you haven't heard about it by now, you're going to hear about it many, many times, as we've just had the annual meeting and this presentation tonight, this evening. But Pinellas Park, and if you haven't been here very long, come about second week in June on a Wednesday night. You might see 8 people in this room. I know I've been here before, and it was an interesting thing. And I was thinking if I should say this or not, but since it's been 10 years, I will. There was one week where we didn't have anybody scheduled for prayer or to teach the class, song lead, or anything. And it was almost a product of the excellence of this congregation. We worked it out, but it was an interesting thing to see all the members here that were so involved, just a few, maybe 100 miles or so up the road, not very far. On a personal note, and I know that looking in this audience that I think other people have been impacted by this, but my own conversion, I have to give a lot of credit to the camp at Weeki Wachee and some of the men and women in this room. But the unique thing about this is that there are other people that aren't even here, and I won't mention names, that used to be in this congregation but are now spread out throughout America, even throughout the world, that had an impact on me individually and at the camp as well. So the footprint of Weeki Wachee Christian Camp continues to be laid. Okay, it's not just, well, it's a Pinellas Park thing, it's a St. Pete thing. This is a nationwide and a worldwide thing that I want all of us to understand. But the greatest impact the camp has is really on the young people. We're enriched and encouraged as adults, as counselors, but it's for the young people. The week of camp that Pinellas Park sponsors is for the young people. And Ed even mentioned this morning in his lesson about the importance that Jesus had and the respect he had for the young. Right? Except to become like little children, you shall not enter the kingdom of heaven. Matthew 18 and verse 3. And is that a literal passage? Well, I think we can discern and understand that that's not the case. We're not supposed to become younger and more mature, but what it is, Jesus understands the tender heart of children and the innocence of children. And Weeki Wachee Christian Camp accepts children as young as 8 years old. I saw 9 yesterday, but I thought it was 8, but we're within a year or so. But this has been the vision and the mission of the camp since 1971, over 40 years, and continues today. The mission and the vision was to provide an atmosphere for young people to kind of get away, to encourage the youth, evangelize, convert souls, and ultimately preach the gospel. Just in the last 10 years, I asked Glenn, and I went for the lower end of the estimate, but about 50 souls have been saved at camp. It was somewhere between 50 and 70. It's hard, again, with that 10-year window, it's hard to go back, but we're pretty confident at least 50 children have been baptized at camp. And if you think about that, that's about 70 days total just for the Pinellas Park week. That's a pretty good number. You're looking, if it's 50 to 70, we can go to the high end. That's about one soul saved per day. Those are pretty good numbers to consider for a mission and evangelistic effort. Quite frankly, when I consider and I go back and I meet with adults that have their lives been changed, when I mention the footprint, it goes to Kentucky, it goes to Memphis, Tennessee, Venice, Florida, here in St. Petersburg, Pinellas Park, Pinellas County, Hernando County, Pasco County, Kissimmee, Florida. The lives of just the small effort here at Pinellas Park and a small little camp in the middle of nowhere that people can't even pronounce is literally changing the world. It really is. And that's why I'm here. That's why the board of directors for Christian Activities is is organized is because we understand and believe the benefit of the camp and what it does. And by and large, when we consider ways to affect children or affect families this year, a lot of times, sometimes getting in the door is through the children, right? Because sometimes, I know when I was younger, it was a lot easier to kind of gather, hey, come on, let's go, we're going to a youth retreat, or we got a youth event tonight. And it's much easier to bring kids in that don't have 18 responsibilities to do, and then once they are converted or the lights turned on, and the parents go, okay, I see that. And since Philip mentioned this, and I don't think I'll embarrass Linda, but I do know that there was another outreach here at Pinellas Park that affected positively a great family in the Walden family in coming here to Pinellas Park and becoming Christians. So when we understand the impact that we can have as mature Christians and seeing children, appreciating and loving them, and also loving their family, is a great thing to do. So moving on, I want to share with you a mission that you can have a direct impact, okay, and a worthwhile and fruitful evangelistic effort. Recently, through the events and efforts of some of the local, the men here, some of the women here, some of the surrounding congregations, and other areas that are affected by WikiWatch Christian Camp have come together and said, not only do we want to carry on the vision and the mission, we want to remember our past, remember the past and the work that has been done. We want to maximize today, maximize our current efforts, and aim or prepare for tomorrow. And in doing so, just to give you a few updates, as you see some of these pictures, the roof of the mess hall has been repaired. Another pavilion is already in the works of being prepared, and as of yesterday, several other structures have been, the foundation has been laid to restore or repair some of those structures as well. Through the leadership of the board of the directors at Christian Activities, the elders here, a major campaign, when I say major, I think it's a major thing, has been launched to ensure the camp not only exists tomorrow, next year, but for generations to come, and thrive for generations to come. And we can consider the last 10 years of 50 souls saved, what can the next 10 years bring? And it's hard to put a tangible or value on, well, I can give you numbers on this, but how many people have been encouraged, edified, gone back to their homes, and sparked something in that congregation that really we don't know, but we're confident by the efforts at that camp. So currently, I want to share with you this. There's several ways, if you would be interested in helping with this major campaign, this evangelistic mission effort, is a 5-year plan, fully renovating the cabins. If you were at the meeting last night, you'll understand, and you probably heard, if you've been in some of our phone conversations or meetings and other meetings, you've probably heard 501c3 to death. But basically what it is, the camp is now eligible to receive charitable contributions. Before it was not. So if you're interested in giving to an evangelistic effort locally where you can see the fruits of the labor, the camp is now able to receive charitable contributions. So updating of the cabins. Once the 501c3 is approved, which is just literally around the corner, we see other areas of possible corporate or charitable foundational support as well. So what long term, here's our plan. See, the camp receives day campers. The facility is, if you've never been there, is a very large area. We currently have a caretaker there, but the caretaker can't do it all. And we don't have the funds to fully support and not open the camp to not have the camp open for regular daily or nightly campers. So what happens is the camp kind of gets torn up a little bit. And so it's kind of like we take one step forward and 2 steps back sometimes in repairing some of the problems that the campers make, because there's a lot of traffic on there to help keep this camp open. And really, except for a weekend here or there, the camp's open for about a week, open for a week for Christian-related activities, and then a few retreats here and there. Our goal is this. We want to raise funds to beautification for aesthetic and also just basic functional utilitarian needs the camp needs to be open. But also in doing this, what we anticipate, we believe with our vision, is that we will then open the camp up, advertise, use our facilities as a positive thing, go out to congregations through face-to-face, through speaking engagements, through advertising, social media, internet, flyers, to say, hey, congregation over here, why not have your weekend and retreat here? And in doing so, our plan is we raise the beautification, the functionality of the camp, so more people want to come, and in due time, it's self-sustaining. And we have possibly 30 weeks of camp that are not only open and available, but are being used. Weekends, maybe there's a retreat weekend next week, and then a week after that, there's another week of another enrichment, something in that area. But our goal is, if we can collectively, when I said collectively, that is all of us together, go in and help beautify the camp, and in doing so, we will also encourage and have other congregations come in and go, hey, that's a great place. I'd like to be there. And what happens is the camp is able to sustain that through rent. And again, it's not an absorbent amount, but again, you have to charge certain fees. But in due time, it will be self-sustaining. And so a small investment now through a gift will, in due time, be a very small investment when it's self-sustaining. So again, in order to reach that goal, the Christian activities, the overseeing body is seeking support for individual. If you're not a member here, or you know someone, an elder, a deacon at a local congregation, maybe somewhere else, and say, there's a great effort going on down at Pinellas Park. Would you be willing to help? That's what we want to do. Is we want to make our vision a reality, not just an idea. So we have several areas in need. If you are interested, if you are interested in an evangelistic opportunity, as I said, that is in your own backyard, there are several people you can speak with. Philip, Glenn, the Folks family, the Nash family, the Grimmer family, and if I'm leaving anybody out, I apologize, but there are plenty of resources here to find out if you want to make a pledge for a certain particular area, or if you want more information to pass on to another group, congregation, whatever that case may be. We will have the resources available and give you everything you need to make that a possibility. Now this evening, we've talked about evangelism. But if you're going to be evangelistic, first of all, you have to be a Christian, right? And I mentioned the 5 steps of conversion, or many of us are used to. But in Romans chapter 3, which we're probably all familiar with when we consider Jesus and his death, burial, and resurrection, Paul in Romans chapter 3, or chapter 6, verses 3 and 4, gives us a great symbolism of the death, burial, and resurrection. And tonight, if you're not a Christian, this is your opportunity to become evangelistic, right? In order to be evangelistic, you must be a Christian. Just as Jesus died, we were buried with him in the water of baptism, we rise up to walk in newness of life. As he rose up to transcend, his body was transcended to be in heaven. So, although this was an evangelistic lesson, we always extend the invitation for those that may be interested in learning more about becoming Christian, or have that need for becoming Christian. Or if you need to be restored, or if you need to have the prayers of the church, this is your opportunity as we stand and sing the invitation song.